Hold up. My views are my own. You heard it here first. You heard it here first. You heard it here first. Lightning round. Dangerously close.
My guest today is William J. Kole. William J. Kole recently retired as New England editor for the Associated Press, is an award-winning former foreign correspondent who's reported from North America, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And like I had said, I was not going to read your entire bio because the list of things that you have done are just. But let's hit some of the high points. For one, you are a 2022 fellow in aging journalism at Columbia University, which will definitely come into play. You were based in Paris. You told the extraordinary story of Jean Calment. Did I pronounce that right? Oh,
Parfait.
right. Hell yeah. We before we started recording, I asked Bill to please tell me how to say that name. Who lived to 120. Jean Calment lived to 122, which is amazing. Yeah. You studied journalism at Boston University. I studied journalism at MTSU, so we have something sort of in common.
Okay, cool.
You covered Dr. Jack Kevorkian. I have so many opinions about him. Everyone does, of course. I'll let mine be known. I am pro Dr. Jack Kevorkian, but not. I mean, I'm sure you've met him, so you might have.
No, he was a man. He was a man before his time, obviously, right? He was.
Yes.
He was taking us to a place we weren't ready to go yet.
Not
literally.
No, yeah. You were the AP's bureau chief in Amsterdam and Vienna. Man, that sounds so cool to live in Vienna. Anyway, oh my God, when you were in Paris, he was the lead writer on the crash that killed Princess Diana. You were at The Hague, where you reported on the Libyans who blew up Pan Am Flight 103. You were there when they elected Pope Benedict the 16th?
Yes.
In Belgrade. You covered Kosovo's independence, the arrest of former Yugoslav strongman. How am I going to ever say this?
Slobodan Milosevic.
He's gone. He's out of there. And your favorite assignment, which I found to be interesting because I also have more opinions on this than I do on Jack Kevorkian, was covering poor Pluto's demotion to a dwarf planet at a meeting of leading astronomers in Prague. Oh my God, you got all these awards. People are getting sick of me talking, so I'm just going to say one last thing. You speak French, Dutch, and German. So it's a hell of a lot of languages, Bill.
Well, I have nothing but respect for people who learn languages with another alphabet, right? I mean, The ones I speak are just sort of, okay, fine. But I have friends who speak Arabic and Mandarin and Russian, and I can't even imagine how you do that.
Yeah. I can go down to Mexico and get around, and I can order food at a restaurant. So that is my bilingualism achievement, was I minored in Spanish, and that the best I can do is I can order food. I can talk to my mechanic because he doesn't speak. A lot of times we use Google Translate, but anyway, I'm sitting here bragging about how I half-ass speak Spanish. This is what I wanted to start this on a story that I think most people will, no matter what kind of person you are, rich or poor, you might find some joy in a lawyer trying to get over on somebody and having it blow up in their face. And when I read the story in your book, it really, man, it gave me a smile. And I was just wondering if you'd be willing to share the story of Jean Calment and her lawyer, and he tried to buy her apartment, correct, in an unusual way.
Yeah, sure. So, and just to recap, Jean Calment still is, the oldest person who ever lived, whose age could be authenticated by records. And she lived to 122 years and 164 days. And that records part is important because, we all have been in the supermarket checkout line and you see some tabloid report about some 150-year-old man living in the Brazilian rainforest or something like that, right? And who's to say, right? I mean, there are 8 billion of us at any given time. Since we became a species, there have been about 117 billion of us who have walked the earth. So you can't say that somebody hasn't lived to 150.
Yeah.
But where's the proof? There's no proof. And in Jeanne Calment's case, there was proof. Lots of records, and she's still the oldest person who ever lived, as far as the Guinness Book is concerned, and science is concerned. But yeah, she when she was 90, her lawyer, who was also a notary, approached her with what he thought was a very shrewd deal. In France, they have a special sort of system where you can sort of buy out somebody, an older person, out of their apartment, and then it becomes yours when they die. And this gives the older person some finances to live on, and then the benefit to you is that you've got a nice little it's like rent control apartments in New York or something. It's a sweet deal. So the lawyer did this when Jeanne Calment was 90. And the years ticked by, the decades ticked by, and she just kept living. And actually, he died before she did. He was, 30 or 40 years younger than she was. He died. Every year, she used to send him a postcard that said, "Désolé, je suis toujours vivant," which means, "Sorry, I'm still alive." Sort of a really cheeky thing to do, but she would send him a postcard. In the end, he paid way more than that apartment was worth, about $200,000, and he never got a chance to live in it himself because she lived so damn long.
That's so crazy. I guess like in a way, it is a morbid practice because but at the same time, like what you said, there does seem to be there's some things about it that I can agree with, where it's like, say there's an older person that they're not in a great financial situation, they're not going to need the apartment later, and they can be helped out. So it's I'll call that gray area. But yeah, I guess so. You met her when she was like 121, or is that when you were?
Yeah, the first time was 120. There was a big birthday bash for her, and she, in her 120th year, overtook a Japanese fellow to become, at that point, the world's oldest living human. And so we did a lot of coverage of her, obviously, and then caught up with her again when she was 121. She actually recorded a rap video.
Oh, yeah.
Which was really, it's a little misleading. She more or less was murmuring and mumbling in French on this track, while this group was mixing it up musically. But
still very cool.
Very cool. And the name of the album was Maîtresse du Temps, which in French means time's mistress.
All right.
So she was a very edgy person, very smart, right up until the end. My favorite quote from Jeanne Calment was, "I only have one wrinkle and I'm sitting on it."
And, this is pure speculation, but perhaps a good sense of humor can, and you know what, I think it's more than speculation. I truly believe this. I think a good sense of humor is going to contribute to longevity. I really believe that.
It's more than just a theory. I mean, it's actually a reality. In my book, I devote an entire chapter to the roles that belief and positivity play in our lives, in lengthening our lives. And being positive, having a great sense of humor, actually add years to our lives. So that it's and of course, the reverse is true. So
Yeah.
they can take years. Pessimism and negativity can take years off of our lives.
Yeah, man. Ugh. You gotta find a way to like not let that pessimism take control. My new thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do a 1 day a week detox where I don't consume any news or internet, which I know for you, like in your career, that probably wasn't even an option. You probably had to just be accepting the fact that there was news at all times. Like,
Yeah. I just saw the door to your room open slightly. I think that
uh,
was the ghost of Jean Calment
wouldn't
entering.
that be awesome if she showed up here?
Hi, Jean. For those joining us now, 122-year-old Jean Calment has joined us, and yeah.
I saw that. I saw that in the camera myself. The door just opening. Look, it's still opening slowly behind me. That's wild, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I know we're here to talk about the Big 100, which is the title of your book, and the new world of super aging. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about reporting on Pluto, um, and the so-called astronomers that took away its status as a planet. Obviously, I have opinions about this too. But a lot of people did. But can you tell me what it was like being on that assignment? Like, was there tension? And because people really went up in arms about this event, and I was wondering, was there tension among the astronomers? Like maybe with even yourself, were you kind of like, did you have a stake in this?
There was, well, we all grew up with Pluto being in our solar system. I remember as a kid, we had those mobiles hanging from the ceiling of our classrooms with all the planets, and Pluto was right in there.
Yeah.
And so, there was a lot of emotion, even among in the scientific community, and there were factions who were arguing very, very vigorously for Pluto to maintain its place in the solar system. And at the end, they lost, and Pluto was demoted to a dwarf planet. But the thing that made this so crazy is that, everybody knows about, our solar system, that those mobiles. Is it mobile or mobile or mobile?
Let me tell you something.
Mobile is in Alabama.
It's very funny to me that you keep doing so. I have a 5-month-old baby, and he's got a crib, and he's got a this is what he's got. He's got a mobile, he's got a mobile, and he's got a mobile. And it all depends on what my mood is when I walk in there, because I have no idea how to pronounce it. So I think probably I say mobile the most because it's like the most common usage of that word. But mobile, you're right. That's a place that's in Alabama.
Right.
Mobile, that sounds, and that's like a medical thing.
Yeah, that's getting around, right? Well, anyway,
there is no answer to this question. Sorry,
but we digress.
But I'm sorry, I had to jump in there because this is a daily activity for me, is mispronouncing his mobile.
Well, I think that Pluto's demotion just caused such a stir because we were so emotionally attached to Pluto, especially Pluto. We associate Pluto also with a cartoon character, and Pluto is sort of beloved, and Pluto is like a plush toy for some kids, and so we have an attachment to that planet, and then all the textbooks had to be rewritten and re-illustrated, and so there was a lot of people kind of dismayed that Pluto would be downgraded, but it was a lot of fun. I got to use a lot of dad jokes and terrible puns. So it was fun.
Yeah, especially because there is the is that Disney? Is Pluto Disney?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, but in so many ways, Pluto is an underdog as a planet. So
that's right. Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
You know what? I had to get into it for a second, but you know what? Look, it's done. The astronomers had their way. Fine. Let's once we're out colonizing other solar systems, I think maybe we'll bring Pluto back.
Right. There we go.
So this is a small anecdote, but it has a lot to do with kind of like, I think one of the biggest themes in the book. And all right, I'll just tell it like a story, like how I tell all my stories. Okay, there I was. I was reading your book, and I took a break to watch old episodes of Arrested Development on Netflix, which I often do when I want to stop learning and make my brain turn off. Is just watch like, the first season of that stupid show, and but then right there on the main screen is a documentary about blue zones, and I didn't watch it, but obviously the concept of blue zones is gaining popularity in the zeitgeist right now. I feel like a couple of years ago that was a word that was not being used frequently. So first question, obviously, what the heck is a blue zone? And then as a follow-up, why do their seniors, like, why do they seem so healthy? What is it about the blue zone that's giving this appearance of health?
Right. So I think the blue zones are pretty misunderstood, actually, and I'll get to that in a second. But the blue zones they are fundamentally 5 places on Earth. Now they've just added a 6th, Singapore, but 5 originally around the world where people seem to live longer and healthier lives. The myth is that those places produce significantly more people who live to 100 and beyond. And the science just doesn't really bear that out. What we can say about the blue zones is people do live into their 90s, and they live in very good health. So there's a lot we can learn from the blue zones. There's only one in the United States. It's in Loma Linda, California. And
of course,
and
it's in California.
Yeah. And then the others are in Costa Rica has the Nicoya Peninsula, Sardinia in Italy, Ikaria in Greece, and Okinawa in Japan. Those are the key places where they're studying that, these elders. So not to disparage the blue zones because they may not necessarily produce greater numbers of people who live to 100, but we can learn a lot from what they do. Some of the key things they do. First of all, their diets do vary. Because in some places they eat more, dairy, and in other places more fish and stuff like that. But they do tend to eat cleanly, and in general, more of a Mediterranean diet. So we know that helps us. They are very, very socially connected with each other. These tend to be small places, and so people have really nice connections with each other, with family, with friends. They do life together. And that's, as I explained in my book, that really is critical because loneliness and isolation kill us, actually. And a couple other things that are really interesting. They really seem to have a good handle on stress. Stress is the enemy of longevity. It's actually the reason why I took early retirement from AP a year ago. Toxic stress. It's just it hammers us, and it's life sapping.
Yeah.
And these people in the blue zones tend to really handle stress very well. There's a couple other things that are really cool that we don't talk about that much. One is that people in the blue zones tend to only eat until they're about 80% full, and then they stop, which is so weird. Well, because I don't know about you, Doug, but for me, I usually pig out, and then I push myself away from the table in agony, And I'm like,
we are exactly alike in that way. Because
so it's just how we roll. But there is something to be said for not doing that, and for
yeah.
And the other thing that we very rarely talk about is good sleep hygiene. Especially in North America, where we hammer all the time and we burn the candle at both ends. And, we almost think this work ethic and this way of trying to wring every ounce of productivity out of every minute of the day is good. It's not good, and sleep, we need our sleep. It renews our bodies, it renews our brains. And it's a part of the equation of living long. The thing I want to just say about the blue zones is that that documentary, very interesting, really super interesting, but they focus only on the things that we can do to live to 100. And there are things, our diet, exercise, limiting our sun exposure, which can really have an adverse effect over time. So there's lots of things we can do, but what they don't really mention in the documentary is genetics.
Yeah.
And that's a huge piece of getting us to 100, our genes.
I was going to say too, because obviously I'm talking outside of school every time I say anything, because I'm not a scientist. But one thing that struck me when you said Okinawa, because I was thinking when you brought up stress, and Japan is so stereotypically known for having a very stressed out population, because everybody is so like really focused on working hard, working long hours. Although I guess I've heard there's been some changes recently, and maybe even they might even be one of the countries that will be adopting the 4-day work week. Some stuff like that, but I can't speak to that. But do you think when it comes to like Okinawa, like I guess I don't know how exactly to put this. Is that like kind of maybe different than Tokyo? I mean, do they have a different like vibe there?
Yes. So and big caveat, I've not been to Okinawa, but Okinawa is an island. It's got it's distant from the hustle and bustle of Tokyo, which is, we call New York the city that never sleeps, but really that's Tokyo. It's neon and everything. It's always up in your face, and there's no getting away from it. And you're right. In Japan, work stress is kind of off the charts. There's also high levels of suicide. It's a social problem that they've been grappling with for years. But on Okinawa, things seem to be a little more chill.
Yeah.
And people, go through life a little bit. Now, this is also up for debate, and it may be changing. People are saying that Okinawa may not long be a blue zone because people are changing their lifestyles. Smoking is increasing. People are eating more fast food. They're becoming more obese. These are all things that we struggle with in our country. But so I mean, it's hard to make sweeping generalizations about any place. People see these blue zones and they think, "Oh, I'm gonna move there. I'll live to 100."
Yeah.
I would say if you're contemplating moving to a blue zone, pack your jeans. And I mean the GENES kind, because again, this is a huge part, unfortunately, of living to 100 is having that sort of cosmic, advantage of, from our parents and our grandparents.
Yeah, I think I've got a good shot, man. The only thing is, all the elders in my family, what got them all was they all got by cigarettes. But that's a choice. That's not something. So
Yeah.
And I had and one guy, sadly, COVID, but he made it almost to 100, so pretty damn good. I'm sorry. I lost track a little bit. Oh, I was gonna say something stupid. I'll say it anyway. I think in regards to Okinawa, recently they released all that water from Fukushima. So also that could be a concern for a blue zone if you're eating fish out of that water. Ugh.
Yeah, that doesn't inspire confidence.
Man, this is just an off the wall question. Just kind of like curious what you might think, because I find it fascinating. Like after World War II, that they would go and continuously keep hunting the Nazi war criminals, no matter how old they got. Obviously, at this point, we're starting to probably get to the point where there aren't many left. But
Right.
In your career, you've reported from The Hague, and as far as I know, there's no statute of limitations on Nazi war crimes. What do you think are the chances we might still see a 120-year-old Nazi go on trial?
It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's unlikely. I mean, this generation is winding down.
Yeah.
But it's certainly possible. I mean, there's in the book, I also examine this whole phenomenon of longevity hacks and life extension and all this stuff. So there's a whole, there are billionaires. Jeff Bezos is one of them, who's investing in companies in Silicon Valley and in these big pharmaceutical ventures that are trying to essentially find ways to come up with medicines that might extend our lives. And it's a very interesting issue. I think it's almost an immoral issue from where I stand for a couple of reasons. But one of the the biggest reason is that even in our country we have a longevity gap. People of color don't live as long as white people, and so unless and until we can close that gap, and it seems to me to be unconscionable that we have rich people trying to live longer. But to your hypothetical question about a 120-year-old war criminal, in my book, there's I quote a bioethicist talking about these longevity hacks and things that we might be able to do to prolong our lives. And he says one downside of that would be dictators living too long. Imagine if you have somebody in power, and at some point, they're going to die, and another leader is going to take over. Hopefully, a more benevolent person. But if there's somebody who's despicable and is able to stay alive and stay in power, that's not good. I'm against that.
Incidentally, Henry Kissinger is 100 years old now. Happy birthday, Mr. Kissinger. If you're listening, I know you might be a fan of the show, but he's still got a chance to go to the Hague. But yeah, like you said, like these people that there's a meme, and it's another morbid thing, but I do enjoy them. Whenever someone really, really cool dies, they always show the Grim Reaper using one of those claw machines. And he's going and he's always going, Henry Kissinger. And he goes, Betty White. It's like,
he harvested the wrong person.
So
it's sickle. Yes, I know. I'm glad you mentioned Betty White, because honestly, we're talking about some negative and somewhat bleak aspects of living to 100, but I think there's a lot of brightness in our longevity futures potentially, and Betty White kind of personifies that. I mean, she lived a great life. I love how Betty White, by the way, died at 99, just a few weeks before she turned 100, so that People magazine was already on the newsstands with Betty White is 100. And Betty White was laughing her ass off, from the grave. Like, she got the last laugh on all of us. It was like her final gag, was like, haha, I'm exiting now. But she, what a wonderful person, and I'm thinking of others. John Williams, the composer, who gave us the Star Wars theme and Jaws theme, and last year he became the oldest person to ever be nominated for an Academy Award. And he at 90, I think he's now 91. He's still writing music. So this is I think the upside of a longer life is that potentially we can create and contribute even longer into our lengthening lives. And
on just to add to, like, of course, Betty White, great comedian, hilarious person, and like we had said earlier, the joy of like humor and all that stuff, giving you that positivity, also probably just like a reason to keep going because you're having fun.
Absolutely. But I'm thinking like, William Shatner, another person, at 90 years old, Captain Kirk goes into space for real. And how cool is that?
I've never met him personally, but I know a lot of people that have. Apparently he is so nice, like just so cool and chill to talk to. And he's 90 and he's not even slowing down. He actually just made some new reality show. I didn't watch it, but it's called like, I don't know, some celebrity Martian shit.
And he wrote a book, and he's very active. I for the book I interviewed Jane Goodall, the famed.
I wanted to ask you about that.
She's 89 right now, so she's somewhat distant from 100, but she's never worked harder in her life than she is right now. and she's jumping on planes and traveling around. And, she's an amazing individual. And again, she sort of epitomizes, what a long and healthy and vibrant life can mean. And she's also working hard on climate change and biodiversity and other issues that are really important. So
she's a personal hero of mine.
Yeah,
in so many ways. Yeah, that's so cool. She's just also, guys, like, you can hear me all day say, hey, this book was great and I liked it. But let me go ahead and tell you that Dr. Jane Goodall, one of the greatest living scientists in the world, right there on the smack dab on the cover of the book, it's a quote by her saying, read this book. So anyway, that's a plug from Jane Goodall, since she couldn't be here today to do it.
I'm so grateful, and it's very humbling. I'm really, it's blown away.
Hold up, it's time for an announcement. Last year I ran a half marathon, and it was for a good cause, so I guess you could say I'm a bit of a philanthropist. But the problem was I didn't really train for it, so I maybe ran for about half the way and then kind of switched to more of a shuffle for the last 5 miles. At about that point, there was a booth set up handing out energy goo, and I figured this energy goo was going to give me what I needed to get across the finish line. But instead of making me run faster, all the taurine and caffeine and other chemicals in it actually just started making me feel itchy, and like my heart was going to explode. And then I started seeing sleep paralysis demons in my peripheral vision. And what I should have done, and what I do now, is take a shot of Magic Mind for energy. What's Magic Mind, you ask? Well, if you like getting a nice little energy boost without seeing shadow people, then you'll love Magic Mind. It's a little green shot made of all natural ingredients, like matcha, nature's extended release caffeine. Caffeine from matcha takes longer to release and helps to reduce stress. Ashwagandha, used medicinally since 6000 BC, an adaptogen that reduces stress and anxiety. Cordyceps mushrooms, and my personal favorite, lion's mane mushrooms, the fluffiest mushroom out there, another nootropic and adaptogen. It reduces anxiety, inflammation, and while supporting cognition by preventing neural generation and stimulating neural regeneration. And here's some other good news. You can go to www.magicmind.com/Doug and use promo code Doug20 for 20% off a one-time purchase. Or you can use the same code for 56% off a subscription to Magic Mind. Once again, that is www.magicmind.com/Doug, promo code Doug20. And now back to the interview.
Oh, I'm sorry. This was I kind of like shifted gears, is what I meant to do, but then my brain stopped working, which happens all the time now. Because I speaking of sleep, I don't get as much as I used to get tons of it. Now I get a little bit less. Hopefully that'll level out soon.
You have a 5-month-old, that does cut into one's sleep, I think.
He likes to wake up every morning around 4 to like a bottle, and then I'm not great at getting back to sleep. So anyway, enough about me and more about people that are turning 100 or turning 110. And this is just like, just anecdotal, my own experience with people that I've met that are very, very, very old. Most people that I've met that are around 100 years old or older, they don't seem like they're likely to be working for a landscaping company or, getting a job in auto manufacturing. These just things, just ways to make some cash, or have a career. Do you expect there to be like an increased risk of elder poverty? And is there any way we can combat that, like as a society, as all of us?
Oh, such a great question. And yes, sadly, I think that we could see elder poverty on a scale we've never seen before, as people live into their hundreds. One of the first questions that comes to mind when you consider, I'm going to live to 100 is, where the hell am I going to find enough money to pay 100 years worth of bills?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's a scary proposition. And then you look at the statistics. The average American only has $30,000 set aside for retirement, which is woefully insufficient. That's crazy. I think about half of people over 65 rely solely on Social Security to make ends meet. And the the average Social Security payment is something around $1,700 a month. So, that alone is borderline poverty.
Yeah.
And, if we're going to live long, a couple of things, right? I mean, are we going to retire at 65? I mean, people are already not doing that. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to think about exiting the workforce in your 60s if you're going to live to 100 or 105 or 110.
Yeah.
Well, then what does that mean? Are people going to work into their 80s or even 90s? And if they do, what kind of jobs? You mentioned, landscaping, working on the assembly line at GM or someplace. That's not going to happen for people at those advanced ages. And so I think again, there's a difference between people who worked white collar jobs and in air conditioned offices, and maybe they can do some consulting, or they can work from home and they can still make some bank, in their elder years. And then there's a whole bunch of people who work blue collar jobs, and they would have to work in the heat and outdoors, and that is not viable for somebody in his or her 80s or 90s, to do that. So lots of things have to be rethought in our society. What's happening is we're aging and living longer, but our society really isn't designed to sustain us and to support us. And so my book sort of argues a rethink of a lot of those things, so that we don't have the specter of people outliving their money and, being in misery.
Yeah. And you know what? I hate to bring this up because I have a tendency to insult Elon Musk at least once every episode.
Oh,
However,
let's do it.
I think I have a solution. Although this is pie in the sky, wishful thinking. If let's just say Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and people of that ilk, if they paid their fair share and they paid their taxes and it went into Social Security, it would be solvent, and it could be solvent for another century, potentially. And it could be even a higher pay, instead of a $1,700 payout, it could be maybe like a $2,500 payout, something that's a little bit easier to live on. And
absolutely.
I don't know what's to say. Call your local Congress person. I don't know how we're ever going to get this kind of like this elite billionaire class to care about the rest of us, because they're obviously trying to go live on Mars with extreme longevity or whatever they're
right.
Well,
I mean, we mentioned we talked about how white people live longer, rich people live longer, and how is that fair? We famously say money can't buy you love, but it can help you lease more life.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't that is not good. I'm with Senator Elizabeth Warren on these issues, and I'm with you, Doug. The rich have to pay their fair share. You just look at Social Security. Most of us pay it all year long. There's a ceiling on how much of our earnings is taxed for Social Security, and the wealthy usually stop paying Social Security tax around the third week of February, because they've already hit that that ceiling if you're a millionaire.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to pay for the rest of the year, while the rest of us working slobs are paying. So there's a lot that needs to be done to even the playing field, for sure.
Yeah, and it actually not to sound silly, but it is kind of like, what is life but your own personal experience and what you think about the things you see when you see a pay stub. And throughout my life, a lot of paychecks I've gotten, and I see what they took out. I see they took out Social Security, and I'm never mad about it. I never go like, oh, those bastards took Social Security out. It's like, that's correct. That's what they should be. But then I have been before, like, but I've had some gripes where I'm like, how much of these taxes did they just take out? Did they just give to Lockheed Martin to build another So anyway, Social Security, Elon, if you're listening, just pay your taxes. God.
Well, wasn't it? It didn't some experts say that we could eradicate global poverty with $6 billion spent in a very strategic way, and Elon was part of that conversation, and that didn't happen. He didn't ante up the 6 billion. Instead, he spent 40 billion on Twitter and ran it into the ground. So.
Yeah, he's I think it's called a malignant narcissist is the term. Okay, but yeah, okay. I promise everyone listening, I will not bring that dude up again. It's almost like a running joke at this point, but because of social issues and because of billionaires, it's almost impossible not to bring them up. And because he's the one I dislike the most, he gets the he gets the most heat. But on the same subject of where we were before the little tangent that I went on, a lot of people over 100, not only are they not going to do landscaping, they're not going to be out here doing hard labor. They're also, a lot of them are going to need assisted living because they're going to have a difficulty with mobility, maybe illness. There's all kinds of reasons why they might need assisted living. Also, maybe just cognitive issues. I mean, this is all very sad, but it's all true. We got to deal with it, and it's going to be on a scale we've never seen before. We've never had needed this much assisted living, housing, the jobs, like the kind of people that are going to do the jobs, are going to take care of the people. So I guess the question, like, does the government have any plans? Do we have any solutions? Do you have any solutions?
The government doesn't have any plans, to be honest with you. It's really a very troubling situation. I have some ideas. I mean, I sketched them out in the book. I mean, one would be sensible immigration. We say that we're a melting pot, and that's certainly how we began. My great grandparents came from Sicily and the Netherlands. Yours probably came from Ireland. I mean, look, why are we closing the door? Especially when we have a lot of these caregiving jobs that aren't being filled. Yeah. And I grew up in Massachusetts, where Haitian immigrants have somehow become this sort of niche in caregiving for elderly people, and they do a beautiful job. And you'll find a lot of Haitian-born people working in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. And they do it with great joy and compassion and skill. So why are we not? Why are we so xenophobic and so afraid? Why are we held hostage by the political right when we could find ways to sensibly let people in the country? Yeah. All they want to do is make a living. Most people who want to come here, they want the same things we want. Yeah. And so this seems to me to be like a pragmatic and doable thing, but yeah, otherwise, the costs of getting, buying care insurance are very, very expensive. And nursing home care is off the charts. Again, in New England, where I live, it can be like $8,000 a month. Yeah. So who has that? I mean,
no, yeah, that makes actually so much sense on so many levels, and it's I almost want to say two birds with one stone, but I feel like it branches out into more than that, because you're addressing poverty in a developing country, because you're able to get people out of that situation where there is no work, or very low paying, right, just not great work. They can come here, they can get paid exponentially more. And then a lot of that money can be sent back to that country, which could also possibly stabilize the country itself, as well as the fact is what we're discussing specifically, elders here that need care, and they're going to need people, people need to run these facilities, need to run these things, or do home checks. I mean, there's so many jobs. It's a huge industry, and it's only going to keep growing. And yeah, open up the doors. Come on.
And our birth rate in America is either flat or only incrementally increasing. And that's true in Europe, as well. And they're having the same problem we have. And they also have, an incredible anti-immigration sentiment that's sort of sweeping society, and no one wants to talk about it. But experts I talked to told me that there's no future for caregiving without immigration, thoughtful immigration. So yeah, it's Canada is opening its borders to immigrants too, because it's they have negative birth rates, and they want their economy to grow, and they want to remain competitive, and that's one way to do it. So yeah, lots of things to think about when we think about a 100-year society. Where it raises a lot of challenges.
And as far as like I said, this branches out into solving more than just the fact that there is a lack of workers for this particular industry. You had talked about the xenophobia. You know what cures xenophobia? Living around people that aren't like you. And so let's say, like, I mean, I guess we could use Haiti as an example, because you said that's, I mean, would you say that's something that's in Rhode Island? That's a lot of Haitian.
Oh, in Massachusetts, Boston is actually, I think, the third biggest, has the third biggest population of Haitian immigrants after Miami and New York City. So,
yeah. So like, say like, someplace maybe down, I live down here in the South, and like, let's say you live in some town, you've never met a person, you've never met a Haitian in your life. Suddenly there's a Haitian population. You start going, start eating at their restaurants, you start meeting them. Suddenly you don't have this irrational fear of people from Haiti. And that's that's
right.
I know it's not fully on topic for what we're talking about, but I'm just thinking about, the positive impacts of this kind of a better immigration policy just seem to like never stop growing. It's like a tree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's see here what I was gonna say. Oh, I feel like we did just talk about some of the sad stuff. And as much as I don't want to get into some of the sadder stuff, we have to, because it's a reality, and that's isolation, loneliness, and extreme old age is a serious issue. Not to mention, if you live to 120, you have probably outlived most of your friends and family from the earlier parts of your life. And I was curious, like, what do you think? What do you think? Maybe what can we do as a society to try to alleviate isolation and loneliness for our elder citizens?
Yeah, it's a challenge. My own mother is 92. She lives independently in the house I grew up in. And her mother, my grandmother, lived to just shy of 104. So, there's a likelihood, a possibility that my mom may be a centenarian in the making, but she's a person who, never got online. She doesn't have Wi-Fi in her house. She's never sent an email or liked or followed anything.
Yeah.
And there's a subset of the population that's like that. So I only mention that because, a lot of times we think in simple solutions like, oh, we'll just get plugged into social media and everybody will be happy clappy, as the Brits say, and we'll all be connected. That's just not a reality for some of our oldest elders. But yeah, loneliness is a big problem. The U.S. Surgeon General recently declared loneliness to be a public health crisis. And, the National Institute on Aging says that it's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So
just being lonely is?
Yeah. Social isolation and loneliness, because it just, I remember being in Romania on assignment and looking at some of these state orphanages that they had back after communism collapsed, and there was a lot of disarray in society. And there were lots of stories written about these orphanages where these little babies were essentially in cribs by themselves. That they didn't have parents, obviously. They were neglected. And some of them died in that care. They just literally kind of lost the will to live. I mean, it's a mysterious interplay between our bodies and our brains.
Yeah.
but we are wired for connection. And when we don't have it, we wither. And so it's, I think we just need to think outside the box a little bit. One solution, look, most of us, when we think about aging and living very long, and maybe living to 100, we often think about, geez, I'd really like to live in my own house and even die in my own home. I don't want to be in a nursing home and in an impersonal setting like that.
Yeah.
So, we call that aging in place, and that's sort of the gold standard. And unfortunately, for a lot of elders now, they're living alone in that situation. So, where I live now in Rhode Island, right on the outskirts of Providence, you'll find a lot of multifamily homes. There's a large Latino community here, and so you'll see 3 generations living in the same home, like in a triple decker,
Yeah.
And so you'll have the family with the kids in school, their parents and grandparents, and everybody's sort of taking care of everybody else. The grandparents are watching the kids so the parents can go to work. And then, when they need care, their grandchildren and children are taking care of them. And they're doing life together and having meals.
Yeah.
It's very lively and beautiful, And so, that's one possibility. Maybe we need to get away from our sort of white way of thinking that, the way to live is to have a nice house with a lot of land all by myself. And,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that may not be strategically the best way to live long.
It's funny when you mention it, like in my mind, I'm thinking about like the alternatives and like what would I choose? Let's say I luck out and I'm 90, and there is obviously a huge allure to do like the Bilbo Baggins lifestyle. So you're like, I'm living in my hobbit hole. I've got my books. I've got all my stuff. And Bilbo Baggins seemed very content with that life, but that's a certain type of hobbit to live that way. But the other option, like you said, a nursing home might seem impersonal. It also might feel like you're living in a hospital, which is certainly not going to be pleasant. But then again, there's people there, and there's stuff to do. You can have friends. You can, like, I assume they've got like a pool. You can go do water aerobics, keep yourself fit. It's so
absolutely, yeah.
It's a tough decision, man, between aging in place in the Shire like Bilbo, or get into like a nursing home but with a lot of friends.
Well, we don't all age the same way, and we're not wired the same way. So, I mean, some of us are. I'm an introvert, honestly, and I like being by myself. And I'm married to an extrovert who, so we're very different people. But being lonely, not everybody's lonely. Some people are perfectly content. Again, my mom, 92 years old, is very content to be by herself. And she watches TV, reads, plays solitaire, and we look at her and we're like, Mom, I mean, aren't you lonely? She's like, no, I'm good. I like it. I think loneliness as a health problem comes into play when people crave companionship and they can't get it.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are like that too. So we have to find ways to connect. And there are. My son lives in Vancouver, British Columbia, with his Canadian wife, and they have a really cool sort of pilot program there where they are having people in high-rise apartments who get a little stipend in exchange for looking in on the older folks and sort of organizing activities for them and having a pizza night or a movie night or whatever. And it's just they create little micro communities within the building.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple
That's
concept.
cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Vancouver sounds. I've never been.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I visit Seattle very frequently,
Yeah.
and I go snowboarding up at Snoqualmie, and that's like, I mean, you could like throw a rock and hit Canada from there, and I know it's only like short drive to Vancouver. One of these days, I gotta make that drive, man.
Oh, it's so beautiful. You should, Doug. It's a gorgeous city.
I heard it was the most like, if you want to feel like you're in Europe without leaving North America, Vancouver's got that kind of vibe.
It's got that vibe. It's also very Asian. There's a lot of Asian folks, and the influence on the food culture is really interesting too. So if you like Asian food, that's a great place to be as well. But we digress.
Just to take one step back, I think I'm like you in a lot of ways, because you said you're an introvert and don't get lonely easily. And I have a similar, like, I like my alone time. Like, I love, man, like right now, got the house to myself. It's awesome, and I could see like that's such an excellent solution where it's like you can age in place, but some of your younger people in your community that come by, check in on you, have a conversation, so you're not completely alone, you're not in solitary confinement. And
Right.
then, ideally you might have like a Friday night like poker game or something with, something where you go out and do something like that is truly very social. So
Right.
Yeah, you're right. There's a million ways to look at this. But this is actually something I want. So you were, on the subject of the younger residents checking in on. This is something you get into in the book, and I mean it's a very complex thing. Like, how did we get here? It's probably not where we started, but it's. I was just going to ask you kind of like, what's up with like our youth obsessed, ageist culture, and like. Is that a modern development? I believe I feel like it. I think it is. And like, didn't societies used to have like more generally wasn't there more respect for the wisdom of the elders? Like, that's how you always feel like when you hear Native American stories, you would the elders are like who a young person would go seek.
Yeah, I mean, ageism is not necessarily new, but we lived differently. First of all, we didn't live as long, and so. It was also very typical for families to live together, or in close proximity. And so, life was done together, and there was obviously a respect for age. And we have become a very youth obsessed culture. And, so this is an interesting dynamic, because if more and more of us are going to live to 100, how are we going to experience life in a culture that still really values youth over old age? Let's face it. And ageism, the United Nations put out a big report recently about ageism, that it also is it has a negative effect on us. Clearly, it can even, affect our employment. Sometimes people don't get promoted as often, or they just can't get work. I'm thinking about friends and contemporaries of mine who lost work when they were in their 50s and had a hell of a time, getting another position, even though they had tons of experience and, a really strong work ethic and all of that. So we see that in our society. And I think somehow maybe it'll change as more of us become 100. It may even swing, which would be unfortunate, to where we become kind of ageist on the other end of the extreme, and we look with scorn at younger people. Some boomers are already like that too. But
this damn TikTok.
Well, I mean, I've been spending a lot of time talking with reporters about the age of our Congress and Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden, and again, this is an issue that's top of mind right now as we see some of those leaders falter. And, so that opens up a whole can of worms as well. The fact is that, the Constitution doesn't set upper limits for our age. It only sets lower limits, so
Yeah.
The framers of the Constitution clearly valued experience, arguably over youth. So we're navigating that, and we're at a real interesting crossroads there in terms of the demographics of our leadership, and that's a whole other issue. Boomers are going to hold on to power for a while now.
Yeah.
And, we all saw the "Okay Boomer" memes, a couple of years ago.
I
I
loved that era, man. I loved that era. It was the best. That's back when Twitter was still cool. And and whenever like the most worst, just bigoted, vile, racist type person would try to argue with you, and just 9 times out of 10 you could just say "Okay Boomer" and just send them into a spiraling rage that would bother them for the rest of the day. That that was a pleasant time on social media. Alas, the billionaires have taken that from us. Bill, I got to tell you something, man. We're getting dangerously close to the lightning round.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you okay, so the way the lightning round works is I ask you a series of questions, super fast. You don't have any time to think. You just got to go with a gut reaction and just say whatever comes first in your mind. I did not write this lightning round. This was written by co-producer Colleen. I have no idea what I'm going to ask you. This is how we've been doing it recently. It kind of helps with me. It makes it more surprising, and then it also does make it more difficult for me to not interject. I promise to do my best to stay.
All right, let's do this thing.
Okay, this one is called "What's Their Secret?" Please speculate on why these celebrities reached or continue to reach such an old age, living and dead. So not everyone on here is still alive. Possible reasons include, but are not limited to, healthy diet, happy, joyful life, being rich as fuck, which is, she wrote AF. I probably should have said that. Anyway, deal with the devil, etc. And of course, feel free to expound on anything that pops into your mind when I say this person's name. We've actually, we've actually covered several of these people already on the podcast. All right, first one, her, you love her, Betty White.
Positivity.
Did you ever watch the TV show 30 Rock?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah,
she was fantastic on that because she's such a nice person, but on the show she's always like super mean, and she's always like bullying Jack Donaghy. I loved it. But
that's an alter ego for her. She was
was
very sweet. She was sweet AF.
Yeah, and she's also just a great actress, so she could pull it off.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell. Why is he still kicking? How's he still here?
Deal with the devil.
I mean, you could see it. I normally would not say something negative about a person that's going through some kind of like cognitive issues like this, but he has done so many horrible things to so many people and really degraded the lives of so many people in this country. I would say that oftentimes when he kind of stares into the distance, I think he might see the devil coming and calling for his collection on whatever he traded him. Sir David Attenborough, one of my favorites.
Oh, that's interesting. Purpose.
Yeah,
he's such a purposeful guy. He's very visionary. He's always got something going on. And he contributed so much. I would just say he was driven by a sense of purpose and wanting to contribute, and that makes a big difference, moving the needle.
I love that answer. If you don't mind, I would like to add one word to that too, and I would say curiosity.
Yes,
the desire to always want to learn more.
Yes.
keeps you going because you want to know more, and he clearly to this day wants to know more. Yep. Robert Redford.
Devastating good looks. Obviously, this has kept him alive. I mean, what else? There's no other answer.
That falls into the genes category.
I think obviously, yes, there are genes, but again, a lot of these trace to having a purpose, wanting to having something to live for.
Yeah.
I mean, he's being able to reinvent himself in so many roles, and continues to grow in his craft. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he gets in the morning, he looks in the mirror and he goes, "Damn, I look good." And then he's got a positive attitude for the rest of the day. And that positivity.
And he does. Yeah. Man
Okay.
crush.
Oh, and we almost talked about this earlier because we were talking about Betty White, and Bob Barker recently passed away at 99, which so many people had to point out was as close as he could get to 100 without going over, which is part of the game of The Price is Right. But
Yes.
I digress on that. But Bob Barker, what do you think, man?
Well, I think genes, honestly, the guy, I don't know anything about his diet. He seems like a kind of a clean cut, solid person. So I'm imagining there was something there, but genes, we didn't really get into that too much, but look, genes, probably play about a 25% role in getting us to 90, and our behaviors, drive us the 75% of the way. And then at 90, everything flips. And genes account for 75%. If he lived to 99, he had some good wiring. From mama and grandma or whoever else.
Do you remember? I don't know if you ever watched The Price is Right, but there was a time this woman.
Dude, I'm not that old. Okay, come on, man.
this woman got on stage and she was so excited to be on The Price is Right. She ran and bear hugged Bob Barker so hard she broke his ribs. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
And he couldn't do The Price is Right for like months because he had to heal his ribs because she like busted him up bad. So,
ouch.
And he survived that. So I mean, he went through some shit. All right. Hey, Henry Kissinger.
Well, again, genes. My first impulse was to deal with the devil, but I have to say, obviously, anybody who's 100 has some genetic wiring.
Yeah.
I talked with at length with one of the leading longevity experts in the United States, Dr. Tom Pearls, who says that when you start to reach these advanced ages, it's like hitting all 5 numbers plus the Powerball.
Yeah.
So somebody like Kissinger, just he hit the jackpot, the longevity jackpot.
One can only hope that he stubs his toe every morning. Moving forward, Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda it's got to be diet, exercise, and just living cleanly. She clearly, I remember her from those exercise videos and stuff that she, I think she optimized the things that we can do to position ourselves for a long life, a long and healthy life.
I think you could even give her maybe a little in the world of purpose too, because she's a controversial figure. What was her nickname? Like Saigon Jane, something like that. Yeah,
that's right.
She was like one of the most. She was probably like one of the first like celebrity anti-war protesters in Vietnam, I think.
Well, and back in that time, she was like a person that people loved to hate.
Yeah, kind of like Pamela Anderson, because she had that kind of that vibe.
Right.
Okay. That was the lightning round. But man, I had one. This had popped in my head earlier, and it didn't seem like an appropriate time to bring it up. But have you heard of the Centenarian Olympics?
I'm actually a competitive distance runner myself, and so I'm aware of a lot of very old people breaking world records. I'm not aware of any particular event where there are just 100+ people. Is that a thing?
I believe so. I remember reading an interview with a doctor, and that's his specialty. And I think he's like maybe in his 60s, but he says that he's already training to be like a gold medalist in the Centenarian Olympics by doing his own special crazy, all I remember him saying is that he did lots of goblet squats. So, if you take,
fantastic.
If you guys want to take anything away from this, goblet squats might be good for you. I mean, they're definitely good for you.
And there's even an argument to be made for pouring a little something nice into an actual goblet. I mean,
Yes.
we started
Yes.
out by talking about Jeanne Calment, who lived to 122, and she had a glass of port every day.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was her thing. Who knows?
My uncle, or I guess my great uncle, who just made it up here to around 90, and he actually made. I felt like he was doing all the stuff that we just said you shouldn't do. He definitely lived in probably whatever the opposite of a blue zone is. Lived by himself in a cabin. Drank whiskey. Fought in World War II, so must have been stressful. But he would, like, every once in a while he'd call my mom and be like, I think he's a little drunk.
Well, there are people who do everything wrong and they still cheat. The Grim Reaper. A friend of mine, I mentioned this in the book, had a great grandfather who lived to 106, and he liked to drizzle bacon grease on his pancakes instead of maple syrup. So,
Wow.
I mean, that's not a healthy behavior. But again, genes took him where, diet and exercise would never be able to do.
Yeah, I guess one solid takeaway we're going to have to say, like, and people don't want to hear it because everyone wants to go like, well, can I just move to a blue zone? Well, can I just eat spinach? And it's like, well, you can, but those genes are would you say 75% of how you shake it out?
The best thing you could do is pick good parents.
Okay. Man, I hope I did. Bill, I got to ask you one last question, but it's the most important question of the day. Where can people find you, follow you, and of course your book, The Big 100, sorry, I'm blanking.
The New World of Super Aging.
I was kept saying super aging over and over in my head. I couldn't remember the first 3 words. The New World of Super Aging, The Big 100, The New World of Super Aging. I just read it, guys. It's fantastic. You don't got to take my word for it. Jane Goodall read it, and she said it's fantastic. So I'm sorry, Bill. Please go ahead and tell everybody everything about how they
Sure. So you could follow me on Twitter or X or whatever the heck we're supposed to be calling it right now, at Bill Kole, BILLKOLE. I'm there at Bill Kole Books. You can go to billkolebooks.com and you can shoot me an email there. I'm on Facebook under Bill Kole, Instagram. I'm in all the usual places. But I'm super excited. I hope that you give the book a read. One little thing that's really fun is that the book is going to be appearing in Chinese, South Korean, and Portuguese for Brazil. So there's going to be a lot of interest, I think, in it. It's kind of a subject that is sort of affects us all.
Awesome. Bill, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, man. I love this, dude.
Thank you, Doug. My delight. Yeah. May you live 100 years.
Hell yeah. May you live 100 years.
Yeah, let's do it.